What you doing, Caitlin?
I'm picking the first flower. My first flower.
Where she goes. Where she goes. Oh, oh, down here. Woo, tulips.
There we go.
Here. Hey everyone, it's Brittany from Green Bee Flowers. Today we are planting Ranunculus and Anemone corms. So we have a lot. I'm going to say there's about 750 Ranunculus going in today, and there is about, I don't know, 700 Anemones going in today. So we are going to get started on that. Before we do, I'm going to show you the stage that we are planting our Ranunculus at so that they can acclimate here in the hoop house and grow without any issues of transplant shock. The reason we do this is we know that it takes 90 days from when we start pre-sprouting our Ranunculus to when they're going to flower. Which means one, we're hoping for flowers in April this year with this first round of Ranunculus, but two, allowing them to get their first full sets of leaves here already in the ground where they're planted is actually going to help to create healthier plants for us as we go forward into the spring. And if we have any cool nights, we'll be able to just give them a quick cover with frost cloth should they need it. And otherwise, I'm really excited to get going with today. So when we're planting Ranunculus corms, there's obviously a few things that we want to keep in mind. The first, labeling. So because we have several different varieties that are going into the hoop house today, want to make sure that I've got them separated with labels so that we know what's what. Specifically because some of the Ranunculus corms we can save, divide, and use again next year, but there are a few varieties that we are growing. So the clonies, which are trademarked varieties, and those corms we cannot save from year to year. I will be purchasing new ones going into 2025. So it's really important that I have labels. My second thing is the tool that I like to use. We're a big fan of the florist knife method. It gives us a good hole that we can put the corms in, and then you get your depth. So when you're planting Ranunculus corms, we're pulling them out here. They've got good roots on them. We want to make sure that they're a good 3 to 4 inches underground. It's important to remember that as you go through, the dirt will settle. So you have to make sure that these are underground. One, it will make sure you get flowers longer, because as the top level of the soil warms up in the spring, the corm needs to stay cool. The coolness on the corm is what indicates it's still time for it to grow, right? So planting it a little deeper is going to give you a longer flower life. And then the other thing is we plant ours fairly close together. So about the top end of this knife, which is about 3.5 to 4 inches, is what we're going to be placing them apart. So it's really easy to go through as we have like our 3.5 foot rows here. I'll be able to fit a good 8 corms per row, and then we'll move our way down the line. Label as we go, and it's time to plant. elegance ranunculus from Unicorn Blooms. These are actually left over from 2023. I fully intended to plant these in the fall, and that didn't happen, so we pre-sprouted them, and we're putting these in first for 2024, and they look really good. So yes, you can keep ranunculus in cold storage for more than 1 year, and they should still properly pre-sprout. So on the other side here, we are essentially doing the same thing with the anemones. We are spacing them a couple, about 4 inches apart, planting them about 3 to 4 inches deep, and making sure that they are well buried so that we can get as long of a season as possible off of them. Now, my husband has a slightly cooler tool that he's using. It's you want to pass me that one? Japanese. It is a Japanese trowel knife thing. He actually got this from his sister for her birthday one year. But for Christmas, sorry. But it's really cool because it has the measurements on the front of it here, so like you can see in millimeters, and then it's got a serrated edge as well, which is really handy when he's trying to like dig into the ground. It makes bigger holes. He prefers working with this over the tiny knife, but that's okay. So these are the anemones. I like anemones because they are a lot less maintenance than ranunculus. You don't have to baby them quite as much. I kind of stand by with anemones. Like with ranunculus, when you put them in, you have to put like the octopus side down, right? Anemones are a lot less intense than that, and you can just kind of toss them in and they will grow. They'll figure out which direction is up and they will grow. And I think plants are a lot smarter than we give them credit for. Yeah. They look like peanuts? In true Brittany fashion, I miscalculated. The math did not math, and I ended up using about 3/4 of the one side of the hoop house for the ranunculus that we currently pre-sprouted, which means that I had assumed we were going to get about 13 to 1400 ranunculus corms on this side. We'll actually probably be able to fit closer to 1,000, which is fine. It just means we're going to be using part of the center row for the additional ranunculus corms, because we still have a whole second succession that's going in here next week or the week after or sometime, you know, Valentine's Day. But I did actually count correctly on the anemones, and there's only one more variety that has to go in on this side. So that's actually really great. I'm really pleased that the math mathed. On the other side, it means that we'll have a few extra feet at the far end to put in a different crop for the rest of the season, or to use for bunching or pre-sprouting or just seed starting or something. The other side of the center is still going to be a combination of snapdragons and larkspur and campanula and buplorum and some other things that are going in here, simply because they don't need as much space to grow, right? You're putting like seed cells in as opposed to doing like ranunculus corms that spread their roots out everywhere. But in about a month, so these are going to be, it's going to be very green in here. And probably in about a week, we're going to see some sprouts very solidly coming up on either side of the hoop house here. And in about 2 months, we should be we should start to see buds in here. So that's really exciting. Caitlin's over there getting excited about famous scabiosa under the perennial. Oh, cool. Show the camera. They're perennial scabiosa. Ooh, look at how cool the seeds are. So, yeah, so she's over there getting excited. But I am potting up, or bumping up our seed tray of eucalyptus. Now, we did lose a few, which I always expect with eucalyptus. It's got generally really good germination rate, but like Lysianthus, it's a bit of a pain to keep alive. The ones that are looking good, and there's quite a few of them in here, which is awesome, are going to be going into a cell tray. So these guys now are going to get moved onto the heat mat, but they're no longer going to have the humidity dome over top of them. And then in about another 6 weeks, so these guys have been going already for I think 4. We planted these January 16th, and it's a few days away from Valentine's Day right now. It's been almost a month. So it is time for them to get bumped up into a bigger cell so that they can get nice, strong root systems, and then we can have a hoop house full of eucalyptus, which is awesome. So if you guys have been following us for any given amount of time, you know that while I like the seed blocks, the small guys, I don't actually really like the larger ones. I think that they use too much dirt and they're too compact. So normally what we end up doing is moving the small cells here into a bigger cell, as opposed to just like putting these blocks into the bigger soil block. I just find it easier for transplanting later, and then you can actually like put the plants. So I'll show you if you have root systems starting. And if you happen to have, like, so if you have root systems starting or you happen to have like any leggy plants, what I like about this is that you can build your hole into your soil block, right, or into your cell, whereas soil blocks just have the square that you're supposed to be able to set it right on top. This is nice because you can actually get the roots into the soil, push that down, and then if you have leggy seedlings, you can actually help to bury that stem a little deeper to create more roots. So I prefer to do it this way. Obviously, do what works for you. But this is just for our climate, something that I find easier, makes my life a little easier later on.
Goodness. You know, it's so much work just to grab sawdust.
Gonna get there.
Can't believe we grew those in the basement.
They weren't gonna last long enough for the store, so we'll have to.
Well, and heaven forbid we drive 5 minutes over there.
Yeah,
Yeah, we get to enjoy them this way.
save on minutes.
Annie, are those? Oh yeah, you guys haven't met Annie yet. So that's Annie. Hi, Flumpy. So these tulips that are in here actually came from second-year bulbs. They were ones that were really small that we replanted in crates just to see. About half of them actually put up a bloom because I was extremely curious. So there's that little tidbit of experimental information for you. So I just wanted to wrap this video up with a few thoughts kind of about where our season's going, some of the things that we're focusing on. So first of all, we've shifted how and what we're growing for with the introduction, obviously, of the retail store into the business. So last year really was 2023 was really, I would say, year one for our business again, where we just had so many things that we had to learn and figure out and trial, just with, scheduling and new employees and things like that. But it also really showed us, I think, where our business is heading, in the sense that this kind of, not necessarily collaborative, but both and approach that we take to flowers is really going to be necessary for kind of moving our local market into a more locally geared flower market, right? I talked before on our channel about how we only have one other flower shop in our hometown, and it is one of those like franchised flower shops. It's like, I would call it like the Starbucks of flower shops, right? Where you can walk into any single one of them across the country and you're gonna get exactly the same thing, because that's what they specialize in. They have, set recipes that come down, and anywhere you go, you're gonna get the same pricing on that bouquet or that arrangement, and that is what's going to be available at every single one of their stores. Boutique floristry is obviously very different, and as we've gotten, I think, more infrastructure laid on the farm and heard from our customers really what they're looking for, we've kind of been able to bridge that gap between things like, keeping the roses and the carnations in store, but also figuring out ways to make our stems more profitable for the business, right? So, we've done things like purchasing stuff like the clone ranunculus and different tulips because it's what florists want. Our farmers markets here don't start until, the end of May, and typically they're usually finished by the time early September rolls around, because either the weather starts to get crappy, kids are going back to school, and then, main crops other than like potatoes and apples really kind of tend to be done around that point. Like corn season's done in Southwestern Ontario usually by like the first week of September. So it doesn't make a lot of sense to keep the farmers markets going. But even beyond that, the farmers market is not like my retail market anymore, right? It's where we started, but we are definitely a boutique flower farm and florist shop now. And so as I've been thinking about, the infrastructure, the plants, the flowers, the things that we're putting on the farm, more and more what I am trying to do is actually gear our crops towards the things that I know we need, either for weddings, for, the things that sell really well in the store during the summer, dahlia bunches, sunflower bunches, but honestly, moving away from some of those focal flowers that are oversaturated by other growers in our market anyways, and putting more filler in on our farm, because that's really in my local market where if you're growing for wholesale, which we do as well, those are the things that are lacking. So yes, while I'm planting a ton of ranunculus and anemones, the varieties that I'm planting are actually substantially different from some of the other local growers. And a lot of that is because I've been finding in the last 2 years, specifically with one other local grower who has oversaturated the market with stems, growing the same variety as them is not profitable for my business anymore. I can't sell peonies in my store at a retail price point when there's just so many Sarah Bernhardt peonies around all of the other local coffee shops and breweries, something that we've kind of kept in mind in our pricing schemes. But what we come to the table with is that we are florists, right? I have one florist on staff who is trained and certified. I've done coursework on floristry. I kind of worked my way through during COVID. So we're not growing as a market gardener anymore, right? We've moved away from that. And so this year, I think what you're going to start seeing on the farm is a little bit of a shift from like the farm is supplementary to the farm is supporting the shop, right? And the farm is supporting and growing for other flower shops. So that's kind of an exciting change, right? And I think the other side of that is even more important, that I've been doing a lot of research on and kind of trial and error with, which is why we have the basement tulips, is prolonging our season, right? Anybody who works in flowers, who works as a market gardener, who, sells to florists, or, you know that the sooner you can get your blooms going, the off-season part that you can grow your flowers in makes them more profitable for you, because you can fetch a higher price point for those stems. Growing 10,000 sunflowers when everybody else at the side of the road has sunflower bouquets is not a profitable endeavor, but pushing your tulips so that they're ready when the florists want them at the start of February, right? In line or even before the grocery store tulips start to show up. That is what makes your crop profitable. So to have these guys, right, going in my basement right now, they are what I would say is probably on par with the tulips that you're buying from a grocery store, but they're going to grab a higher price point for me from the florists right now, because the regular field grown tulips, when they start to saturate the market in, April and May, those are not coming on yet. It's the same thing with ranunculus, right? So ranunculus is a beautiful crop. It's an expensive crop to grow because it has such a short growing season. Here in Southwestern Ontario, you get a heat wave in, the first week of June, and your ranunculus season is done. It is done before it even started. So a lot of growers are really focusing on trying to, elongate their seasons and being able to push crops sooner. And then it's also things like specialty crops. So eucalyptus is a great example, right? Overwintering eucalyptus in my area is actually going to be, I think, a little bit more difficult than we set ourselves out for. And to be honest, I think we would like to have our eucalyptus crop and our eucalyptus greenhouse also completely solar paneled and solar powered. It would be very cool for us in the future to have the entire farm powered by solar. I'm interested in that. But you can't get Canadian grown eucalyptus, 11 months out of the year, right? typically it gets harvested right before frost, and then growers restarts for plants again the following year. So to be able to have eucalyptus growing year round in a monitored and a heated greenhouse would make that crop incredibly profitable for us, especially because they're trees, right? You know, and another thing that we're looking at doing this year is inputting more perennials. I would like to have a lot more perennial greenery on the farm growing as well, because that's another thing that I think is underrepresented in the market. And I know this because I pay attention to what's coming through the wholesale truck. I'm seeing what varieties of flowers, you know, are lowering and raising in prices based on what time of year it is. And I pay attention to what the growers around me are growing. And in filler and foliage are actually the things that we need more of. You can never have enough of those. So that's just like some food for thought, right? Like as a grower, and as we change what we're doing from, you know, just strictly a home business, market gardening sort of thing into a bustling retail store and hopefully a much larger flower farm, the business side has to change with it. So you're gonna see a lot more of that throughout this year, decisions that we're making. And I'm going to hopefully try and explain some of the thought process behind that. Because why else are we growing flowers if not to support ourselves, right? That's why you start a business. So anyways, those are my final thoughts. As always, thank you so much for watching. If you have any comments, please drop them down below. If you enjoyed the video, hit that like button. If you would love to follow along on our flower journey, hit that subscribe button. As always, thank you so much. Have a great day. Bye, guys.